Hello, Scott Gilbert here once again. Let's talk about the director and directing in theater. Um, me. I am the director in theater, at least sometimes. And I have a lot to say, but I'm going to try to keep these remarks as concise as possible. Um, I think your chapter in your theater appreciation book does a pretty good job of outlining the kind of things that one should know about the director. But of course, every single director is a little different, and I'll talk about that a little bit. Uh, Basically, the director is the artist in charge of a theatrical production, just as they are the artist in charge of a movie. Um, Maybe less so in terms of a TV show where they have showrunners and directors sometimes for individual episodes, but sometimes those overlap. But the director is the artist in charge. And a lot of people think, well, the director's like the most important person. They're the person you can't do theater without. Or is that true? Um, there is in theater a producer, which is your next chapter, which you may not have read yet. And they are also the person responsible for making the play happen, and they are in many ways the director's boss. So the relationship between who the producer is and who the director is an important one. Uh, but the director is generally seen as an essential artistic leader of a theatrical production. Crazily enough, that has not always been true. Historically, the director is new. The director in our kind of Western tradition is only a concept that's about 150 years old, 125 years since it's really sort of taken root and everyone had one. Obviously, throughout the long couple thousand years history of theater, there has been someone in charge, but it has not been a person who had the guiding artistic eye for everything that goes on in the way we think of a director now. In Shakespeare's day, when he wrote the play, he was probably sort of in charge of the rehearsal process, but he was not in charge of the company that produced the plays. And he was handing out scripts and telling people, here's what I want, here's where you're going to stand to some extent. But he was not like a director. In the 19th century, theater was dominated by what are called actor managers, which was the lead actor, the big shot, who told everybody what to do and told everybody where to stand and how to act so they wouldn't overshadow him, usually not her, um, in their effort to be a big star. Uh, in Greek days, 2,500, 2,600 years ago, um, there was a playwright who had a lot of influence. There was a person who was sort of in charge of the company to keep them in line and make sure they showed up on time, but nothing like our contemporary modern day director. So the director is new. That's an interesting thing, a thing that a lot of people don't think about. Now, it's not new to you or to me. Obviously, our whole lives, there's been a director in theater, and directors have been incredibly prominent in talking about film and almost anything that gets produced in a performance way. Sorry, there's loud trucks going by on the road. That's quite a ways away, but they're still pretty loud. Um, the thing that I'm most interested in, naturally, is that the director is me. When I get a chance to talk about this chapter in your book or this concept of the director in theater, I am talking about myself because that's what I do for a job much of the time. And it is probably the thing in theater I'm most passionate about, that I have the strongest opinions about. Um, I come not from a theater background when I was young, but from a sports background. I played all the sports. I lived in a little town in Oregon where I could play all the sports. And My dad was a coach, a high school coach. And my whole world up until the time I got to college revolved around, all the stuff that teenagers' lives revolve around, but sports, playing sports. But like most people, when I got to college, I was not able to continue being an athlete in the same way. I did play a couple of sports in college, a little bit, but I was just not good enough to be a professional in any of those sports. Um, but the concept of a coach and all the good coaches and bad coaches I had made a ton of impressions on me. So the director is kind of the coach of the theatrical production for me. They're also the guiding artistic vision. They are the eye. In your book, they say that the director is the first audience member, that they are the person sitting out and watching the play develop from the point of view of the audience, whereas all the actors and everybody else involved in the production doesn't have that point of view. And being able to say, here's what the audience is going to see, here's what we need to do in order to change what the audience is going to see. One of the places that I have a lot of opinions about directors and about theater is that I think a lot of opinions are bad. In your book chapter, they talk a little bit about where directors come from. Almost no one starts out as a director. I was fortunate enough, because of some things I did, to become a director quite early in my theatrical career, in my 20s. But most people get into theater to be actors, or maybe to be writers, designers, artisans, management people behind the scenes, all those kind of things. You'll find 19-year-olds like yourselves and like the people involved in Rent who want to do those things. From those ranks usually come all the directors when they discover either that the thing that they wanted to do was not enough for them, or that they had some particular skills that led them beyond just being the smaller or more specific thing that they wanted to be. I think that actually leads to a lot of bad directors in theater. I think there's a lot of bad directors in theater. I think there's a lot of ex-actors who were the best actor in the group, and who, as they got older, because they were the best, kind of got moved to positions of power and authority for good reasons, because of their talent, because of their skill. But being a director is a different thing than just being the most skillful artist. Being a director means being able to relate to a lot of people, to designers, to crew members, to artists, to actors, and to be able to talk to them and work with them and get the best out of them. That's kind of a coaching thing. There are all sorts of directors. I've had directors who literally yelled and screamed, but were good because their level of talent and ability to say and yell and scream the right things was so high. Not my favorite kind of people. I've had directors who did very little, it seemed like, but every little thing they did helped guide people in a certain way. You have probably been in groups with leaders or teachers in classes. And sometimes you're like, why is this person such a good teacher? And sometimes you're like, why is this person such a bad leader of this group? And those things really apply to the world of directors. And they really have a lot to do with where, being a good actor doesn't make you a good director. Being a good designer doesn't make you a good director. Director has this overall controlling vision, but even more importantly, an ability to get a lot of people on the same page, working in the same way. That is something I feel very passionately about, something I feel that we really lack in terms of theater sometimes. A lot of people become directors just because they think that's the highest position, when in fact is not the best thing that they would be able to do. TV and movies weed out the worst directors. If you direct 2 or 3 TV shows, 2 or 3 movies that are bad, you just don't get to direct anymore because no one watches those things and they don't make any money. But theater doesn't have such a great system for weeding people out sometimes. That doesn't mean there's not a lot of great and wonderful directors all over the place that I have had the opportunity to work with and that I strive to be like. Your book has a little section on Peter Brook. I will just say before taking a brief break and then moving on to the actual guts of what a director does in the theater. Peter Brook is one of my great heroes. I have read The Empty Space many, many times. Peter Brook's ability to care about the audience is what I try to strive for. A lot of directors want to prove that they're the director and that they're in charge. And a lot of directors want to insert their ideas and vision onto a bunch of actors. And a lot of directors just want to be loved by the actors and want the actors to think they're good and cool. And I sort of want all those things. But the main thing I want to do is for the play to be good. And the measure of whether the play is good is what does the audience get out of it. Every moment that I'm directing a play, I'm trying to think about what is the audience's experience? How is this going to affect us? Does this matter what we're doing at all? Is this going to change things? Can we ignore this? Can we emphasize this? What can we do to make the audience's experience better? And Peter Brook, who's mentioned, and there's a little picture of him in your book, was the person who said all one needs for an act of theater to be engaged is an actor, an audience, and an empty space. That is, in fact, the title of his book. That is a mantra I have tried to remember my whole career. That is a caring about the interaction between the audience and the actor every single moment that I try to keep in mind. I also want people to love me and think I'm awesome. And I also want to be the best possible coach anyone ever had. But at the essence of it, it's the standing in for the audience and producing high quality, both entertainment and edification that the audience gets the most out of, that I believe most passionately in. All right, let's break this just for a second here and then talk about what a director actually does.